Hello, everyone. Hope all is well with you. Well, all is well with you. I don't hope, but all is well with you. In this broadcasting, we will be talking about the reprogramming of the mind. So we will start from your negative character and now step into the reprogramming, right? In order for you to come out of the past and now step into the present. This conversation is going to be very beautiful. It is very beautiful outside. I had to do this broadcasting outside because I was like, Ra is going to speak to me. The planet is going to speak to me, the universe, Mother Nature, and I need all of them, including me as well. Thank you for stopping by the broadcast. But I was looking at life as, you know, the reprogramming of the mind and the programming that was installed within us in order to look at things from always a negative standpoint. So I feel as though, like, how can I say this? When we were kids, we weren't born negative. You can't be born negative. It's impossible. You are born in this world, and when you are born in this world, you know nothing of this world. Just being honest, as a child. So, as a child, I realized that in the present life right now, because I didn't realize it when I was a kid, that technically everything that was taught to me was to flip my mind upside down. And if the third dimensional world can flip my mind upside down of who I am, now I will cause harm upon myself. And I had to realize that with myself, like, why am I doing negative things to myself? Why am I hurting myself? Why am I doing this? And it just didn't make sense to me because I looked at life like I should help myself in order to help people. But I was always questioning myself in my past life and saying to myself, why am I not helping myself? Why am I always looking for someone else to help me? So I had to do some digging with myself, and I had to come to realize that everyone in this world was programmed just like I was programmed. And the way the programming worked is when you come in the world, you know nothing about the third dimensional world. The third dimensional world is technically on the outside of you. And you have an inner world that's actually already within you, within your subconscious. So I said to myself, how can I expect others to reprogram me when others don't realize that they have the ability to reprogram themselves? So in my past life, I was looking at my life as in I'm expecting someone to help me first. But I had to realize that help doesn't work like that. Because if I'm looking for someone to help me in a time where I'm not helping myself, what happens if that person helps me and I'm not in a time of helping self and I envy them? And that's very true in this world. That when you don't reprogram yourself, you would look at the world in a mind state of it's always trying to hurt you. But if you look at the world in only that one mind state, then you wouldn't even see the help if it's in front of you. And you wouldn't even realize that it's help even if it's in front of you. Because when a lot of us are programmed from a third dimensional mind state, we look at it as, oh, this person think they're better than me. Or you could just envy that person and don't even realize like your envy doesn't matter. You looking at someone trying to help you in a positive way, that don't matter as well. What really matters to you is if you accept the help. Once you accept the help, your mind is accepting the information from the next being that's around you. And when you accept that information from them, you can now act upon it. So it's like stepping out of a third dimensional mindset and now stepping into a fourth dimensional mindset and looking at life like, always look at life as, how can I help self first? And it's not a selfish thing to help yourself first. Because when you realize that when you're reprogramming your mind in order to help yourself first, you start to build up a new characteristic. See, the first characteristic would be that you don't help yourself. You might think you are, but you're technically not. Depending on what your behavior, but what depending on what your behavior is like. So I learned with myself that if I naturally help myself and I build up this fourth dimensional characteristic that's already technically already within me, I'm just remembering how to do it. Because in this life, we all came here to remember who we are. That's it. So, from a third dimensional mindset, no, let me say this. From a third dimensional mindset, you may not realize that you need to help yourself first. From a fourth dimensional mindset, when you step out of the third dimension and step into the fourth dimension that's within you, then you start to realize, like, okay, if I help myself, I get rid of the characteristic of not helping myself. Right. And then when you help yourself, it builds up a magnet inside of you, right? Where if you naturally help self and you have that magnet and it's attracting other people that are like that, then more help from other beings will come as well. The reason why it works like that is because you can't expect someone to help you first unless if you help yourself first. When you help self, it actually destroys the characteristic of not helping self anymore. And now it uplifts who you are, right? As a fourth dimensional character and say, hold on, if I always help myself, which is a natural skill that everyone has, they just have to realize it. That when I naturally help myself, it attracts others to also help me. But the main power source of that is you helping self first. Never expect anyone in this earth to help you first. Always expect yourself to help yourself first. And the reason why I say that is because you know your behavior problems. You know your doubts. You know your shortcomings. You know that. The world don't know about you, but you know about you. And once you look at yourself of, the things that you doubt with yourself, it's not really you. It's not really you doubting the world. Because when a lot of people look at the world, they believe that they're doubting the world. But before you can doubt the world, you have to doubt yourself. And that's one of the things that you don't want to do because then you're the one that's manipulating your mind to make you believe that it's okay to doubt yourself. But let me just ask you a question. If someone came up to you and said they doubt you, would they be correct in saying that? Now, you might get offended because you're looking at it as no one should ever doubt me. But hold on. If you don't want others to doubt you, then you can't doubt yourself. You have to step out of that and now validate yourself of who you truly want to be. No one can validate you in this world. No one knows who you truly are, but yourself know who you truly are. So the power of just don't even look at the world. Don't even look at what's on the outside. Just looking what's within you and reprogram your third dimensional characteristics that came from this third dimensional world that was on the outside of you, but now implanted within your mind. And look at all your doubts, look at all your flaws, and you correct them. Don't expect anybody else to correct who you are. Don't get me wrong. It's okay for someone if they're about to see you make a mistake. You have you have people that learn in two different type of ways. See, I can see that you're about to make a mistake, right? But I always realize that life is an experience. If I see that you're about to make a mistake, I could tell you that you're about to make a mistake. But depending on what type of character you are, I'm only allowed to tell you but so much. If you are a third dimensional character, I wouldn't be allowed to help you because you wouldn't accept the help that I'm offering you. Instead of you looking at it as help, you would look at it as I'm trying to control you. I'm trying to say that you're less than. But that's only that's only because you're misinterpreting what I'm doing for you. If you just naturally realize that you have control over your mind, and if you have control over your mind, then you shouldn't misinterpret yourself. And the reason why I say misinterpret yourself is because how can you expect others to help you if you don't naturally help self first? And that's one of the main like characteristics that have been implanted in us from the third dimension. We don't look at it as that. We always look at it as people should help me. People should help me, but it don't work like that. It would never work like that. Life is like a magnet. In order for help to come, you have to help self first. Because when you when you build up that characteristic of helping self first, then you always going to depend on yourself to help you first. Don't get me wrong. Others will help you as well, but you will always go in a mind state of thinking like, hold on, I have a problem. All right, what is the solution? And you're asking yourself, what is the solution? Okay? Don't get me wrong. You can go on YouTube and you can find certain solutions that are in this world. But at the same time, you always depend on self of this is my problem and you are the solution to that problem. You're not you're not the problem. The problem is on the outside of you. It's not within you until you attach it to yourself. And then that makes you the problem. But it's just like this. It's like as an example. It's you like an example. It's like you looking at people and you see that people need help. And when you give them help, they don't accept it. Being that they don't accept it, you're not the problem. They're the problem to themselves. Some people, when they offer help, and then when people envy them for doing that, some of us think that we are the problem. But you're not the problem at all. It's more of that person being a problem to themselves in order to not receive help from the universe. And that's what it really comes down to. It's that third dimensional characteristic that has to realize that there's a fourth dimensional world within you, and that is within the subconscious, not in the mind. And the reason why I say it like that is because the mind is like a child. The subconscious is like the big parent to the child. The subconscious knows everything about your existence. The mind knows nothing about your existence. The mind is only used to remember, and not only that, to receive information from the subconscious. Because the way I look at the world is, I would prefer to learn the data, the information that is within my subconscious, versus looking at the data that's on the outside of my mind, and then plugging that information from this third dimensional world into my mind. But I realize that the third dimensional world is nothing more than a lie. And as everyone does, they believe that the third dimensional world on the outside of them is true. And what I mean by that, I'm not talking about the trees and the setting. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the data that is implanted within you ever since you were a kid, from school to college. All that information doesn't describe who you are. All that information from the third dimensional institutional world, because it's not education. When you learn that data, you feel as though like this is the true data of yourself. No, it's not. It's just like asking you, one plus one equals what? You would say two. But let me change your perspective. How can one plus one equal two when a woman and a man comes together and they have children? They are one and one. When they come together, they make two. And then that two gives off life to a third person. Let me just say that one more time. In math, we look at 1 plus 1 equals 2. But how can 1 plus 1 equals 2, where when a woman and a man get together, they are 1 and 1? They make 2, but the 2 makes the 3. So even when you look at math, you can tell that it's a lie, because 1 plus 1 don't equal 2. 1 plus 1 actually equals 3. Without man and woman getting together, you will never have a third person that actually comes. So just looking at how nature, the system of nature, how it naturally runs, you can tell that the third dimensional math is a lie, because it does not align with the natural capabilities of self. And so a lot of things that we are being taught from a third dimensional world has been branded in our mind. Like, it's just a third dimensional characteristic. When we wear different brands, like far as Adidas, Nikes, Prada, Gucci, Louis, we feel good about that item. But as a third dimensional character, you're not aware that your emotions are tied into that brand in order to make you happy. But I will ask you a question. Would you be happy about yourself, or are you happy about the brand that you have on? And a lot of people, when I ask them that question, they get kind of stuck because they're like, now what you saying is right. It's not just about me being right. It's just that me as a fourth dimensional character, I want to always see that people are happy about themselves, not happy about the brand that they're wearing. Because what it's doing to you is taking your emotional system away from your inner you and now planting it on the outside of the world. I mean, true happiness is always within. It don't matter where you put me at, I'm always going to be happy about myself. You can put me in the ghettos, you could put me anywhere. And I will always tell you that I may have came from the ghetto, but the hood is not who I am. It's just an area and a scene of where I came from. And that is a third dimensional world as well, but that third dimensional world doesn't describe who I am. So how can I let that scene of where I come from manipulate my mind and have me thinking that this is all I have? Well, the only way you believe that's all you have is because you're letting the outside world, which is a third dimensional characteristic that you could pick up, but you should never hold it. What I'm saying is that in the process of reprogramming your mind and stepping out of the third dimensional world, don't look at your third dimensional self as a bad self. Don't look at your third dimensional self as a good self. Look at it as a self that you can learn from. That's all. You know what I'm saying? So, like when you go out and about in this world, don't, how can I say this? Don't misinterpret, how can I say this in simple terms? Like when you go outside, don't look at things from a eye space of good and bad. Just look at it as, oh, that's what happens. Because when you look at the world of, okay, this is what happens. It's like this. It's like, how can I say this in simple terms? I'm currently sitting outside, right? And if I decided to chop down all these trees, how can I say this in simple terms? Let's say, okay, as an example, let's say I chop down all the trees. This is as an example, universe, not saying I would do this, okay? But let's just say I decide to chop down all the trees. If I decide to chop down all the trees, after I chop down the trees, if I'm not aware of learning the experience of what I'm doing, and I chop down all the trees, then what type of air or information that I'll receive for myself? As in saying this, a lot of people believe that trees they just give us oxygen. Okay. But think about it. If they give us all oxygen and you chop them all down, aren't you not the one suffocating yourself? That would be you doing that to yourself. So it's just like looking at life. Some people would say that would be a bad experience. But in order for me to learn that experience, sometimes you can see it on the outside and realize it. And sometimes people have to go on the inside, right? in order to learn what they're doing and come to realize, okay, this is not the right thing to do. That's it. It's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's more of looking at it as, okay, this is supposed to happen and this is not supposed to happen. That's it. When I say this is supposed to happen, you can't still tie it in like, oh, this is good. You can't tie it in as in saying, oh, this is bad. It's just looking at what goes in this world. Is it supposed to happen or is it not supposed to happen? And that's how I look at the world. I just learn from it. Don't tie your, don't, how can I say this? Don't tie your emotions into everything when you're doing something. Because let me say this, our emotions sometimes can block us from what we're truly seeing. It's like this. Some guys, well, let me say this. Most guys really don't, but a lot of women do. In this world, a lot of people don't see this, but I see it. In this world, we are taught that we are supposed to approach women. I'm not going to say you can't, but you should ask yourself, why is it set up like that? Is it based on you being an alpha male? Is it based on that you're stronger than her, so you're supposed to approach her? But if you don't look at it as that, and you just step out of your third dimensional self and saying, well, I'm a guy, I'm supposed to approach her. But that's what the world told you to do. When you came here as a kid, that's not something you taught yourself. You probably learned that from your father and your mother. But see, your father and your mother look at things from a third dimensional perspective, as in the guy should only approach the female. But I ask you, does that make logical sense? The reason why I say that is because it doesn't make logical sense to me if both beings can naturally communicate with their mouths. They could naturally give off information with their mouths. If a man and a woman can approach a BMW car, which is a third dimensional item, just pay attention. Listen. If they both can approach the same item, and I put a BMW in front of a man and a woman, right? It's not the item that really exists. The only thing that really exists is the experience that you went through in order to receive that item, as in this. When you go to BMW, you see a car that you want, and this is for men and women. You see the item that you want. It's nothing more than a third dimensional item. It's nothing more than a toy. Okay? When you go inside, do you speak to the car first? No. You speak to other people. The person that is selling you the car could be a man or a woman. But pay attention. As a man, you might go in there and it might be a woman that is selling you the car. Right? But you already have that characteristic already within you to approach anything in this world. If you can approach, if you can approach, if you can approach, if you can approach as a man, if you can approach anyone, then that means they give you the characteristic to approach anything. But from a woman's standpoint, she doesn't realize that when she steps inside of BMW to approach this car, she's not realizing like technically the car don't even matter. Just pay attention to what I'm saying. The woman is approaching the guy because he's the seller. He don't know what she wants, but she is approaching him in order to get that car. Women don't realize they have that characteristic. They do it all the time. But they don't realize that you just approach a guy to get a car. So hold on. If you can approach a guy to get a car, then that means you have the same characteristic as him as well in order to approach a guy that you actually really like. See, let me say this. For most women, they don't realize like, from a third dimensional characteristic of what they're being taught, right? If you're in a third dimension, realize the third dimension is within inside your conscious. It's technically not even, how can I say this? It's on the outside of you, don't get me wrong. But when you reprogram the mind and step into the fourth dimension, you start to realize things from a different angle and a different degree. So what I'm saying is, for a woman, when she's in a third dimension in her conscious, she's looking at the world of, okay, the guys are supposed to approach me, but you just approached the guy in order to get the BMW car, though. Did she not? What did she do? She said she thought about it and was like, I want to get a car. Okay. Now, when she went into BMW, do she approach the car first? No. She has to approach who? The seller, which is the guy. Okay. So is the seller going to come up to her? Majority of the time, she has to come up to the seller and tell the seller what she wants. The seller doesn't know what she wants in order to she communicate to the seller of what she wants. But isn't she still not approaching the guy, though, in order to get what she wants? But they have her confused in the third dimension where she believes like, oh, a guy is only supposed to approach me. Let me show you how life works. A lot of people believe in soulmates. A lot of people believe in that. But let's just say in this world right here, let's just say you came here to remember who you are. That means that the storyline that you're walking on is the same storyline that you had walked on before. Most things remain the same. Some things change depending on how the soul approach things. And let's just say for women, let's just say that in a past life, she approached you in order to receive who you are. Do you know why? Let me say this. Do you know why she's approaching you? And do you know why you are in acceptance of that approach? It's because it is. A real spirit knows that it can receive anything within this universe. Once it locks its mind to it, and is rightfully so, and the energy aligns with it, right? Then it's going to naturally approach. But for women, they kind of put themselves in a box, right? And just like I said before, let's just say that woman in a past life had approached you in order to receive who you are. Let's just say she believed in the third dimensional world that's just playing in her head, that's not even real. And she believes like, okay, he got to approach me. Well, think about it. This is the storyline. She's supposed to walk in her true storyline, which is the fourth dimension. The third dimension is basically convert your mind into believing that the third dimension is real. But if you believe in the third dimension, it's going to have you walking against your storyline. So let's just simply say, what happened if this life is a repeat? For you to remember who you are. For you to transcend who you are. But remember, in the process of remembering who you are, everyone has to repeat everything in their storyline in order to remember who you are. If you do something against your storyline, you're going to be looking at yourself like, oh, I'm learning. Like, no, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. You gotta remember, you have to repeat what you're doing in order to remember. You can't remember anything or have a moment of deja vu, which is still remembering, because you have a sense of, I felt like this happened before. Right, remember. It's not even deja vu no more. So for women specifically, I always look at them like they kind of playing themselves out their own storyline because they don't realize that they approach a BMW car, but they can't approach a guy. Like, no. But I just seen you do it in order to get the BMW car. It don't make sense to me. Both individuals only came here to remember and experience who they are. So I'm gonna just be honest with you. For myself, I like to see if, and this is still on the same topic of reprogramming. I like to see if a woman is a third dimensional character or a fourth dimensional character, or even higher than that. I can tell if a woman is a third dimensional character based on how she approached life. And what I mean by that as in this, I go to the gym, right? I technically mind my own business. I usually keep my connection within me. I pay attention to what I'm doing in order to make myself better than what I was yesterday. And the only way to do that is to look at what you're doing. If you're doing something and focusing your attention on everyone else, you don't have no attention on yourself. So if you don't have no attention on yourself, you can't actually look at what you're doing. You can't look at the flaws of what you're doing if you're not paying attention to yourself and you're paying to everything on the outside of yourself. So I say to people all the time, when I go to the gym, I'm paying attention to myself. Don't get me wrong. I look up at people or whatever the case may be, but I noticed something with third dimensional women that I find a bit strange. And I found out the reason why they do this. You have third dimensional women where in their mind, they're locked down to the third dimension, which means they only operate as a third dimensional character. I see women do this all the time. They get up, right? I might be in a certain area, secluded myself, and they'll come in that area. They might bend over, they might do the fake stretch, but they're doing that in order to get my attention, to bring my energy to them. But I'm not a third dimensional character. So when I see that, I look at it as a flaw. And me, technically, I don't like that. The reason why I don't like it is because on a simple fact, it is a mimicking program that every woman does in America. In order to get your attention, I'm not going to say nothing to you. This is what women do. And it's very boring because every last one of them do it. That's when it becomes boring. When you're a fourth dimensional character, you're looking for excitement. You're looking for something that is original. You're looking for something that is unique about that next being. Do that. I look at them, I smile, and I keep it moving. And they look at me like, why isn't he not approaching anyone in this gym? Because I have a true belief system that is within me. I'm looking for a being that aligns with me. I'm not just looking for a pretty face and a fat ass. Don't get me wrong. That's beautiful to have. A girl with a pretty face and a big butt, ain't nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, what is her mind like? Is her mind a third dimensional character where she believes that everything has to approach her? That is a lie. That is a lie. Because me as a fourth dimensional character, I realize that life is a magnet. So if I have love, happiness, and peacefulness within me, that is a magnet that's within me. And that love, happiness, and peacefulness will naturally come to me because I am the magnet that actually attracts it. So when I look at women, I don't look at them as any different. Don't get me wrong. They have different things about them. Don't get me wrong. But when it comes to approaching life, I don't look at it as different. We have the same capabilities. Whatever I approach, she can approach. If I can approach her, she can approach me. She just approached a third dimensional item, which is a car, a toy. So she can approach a guy like, no. And then you have them following all around. That's not unique to me. That's not unique. That's not something I would probably take serious. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that guys should not approach women, but guys should always question, how is it that women can approach third dimensional items on the outside of them and still approach a guy that's a salesman in order to get the item? It just doesn't make sense. So for women, I look at the uniqueness that they have within them. If they're not bringing something unique, something brand new to my world, it's more of a like a repeat from the past. And I don't want the past. So with women, if they don't approach with uniqueness or something different or new, then I'm not gonna really be attracted to it. I might just clap your cheeks and keep it moving. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, if she's operating from a third dimensional perspective, you realize like, yeah, this is not going to be what I really want. It's okay to do whatever you're going to do and to keep it moving because the universe look at it as okay. So you don't want a third dimensional characteristic. No, I don't. You want someone that is within a fourth dimension or higher. Yes. So for some guys, they have to realize that for myself, right? I still have that ambition to approach women. But before I approach you, I'm gonna watch what you do. I'm gonna see if you still have that third dimensional microchip within your mind, or if you're a fourth dimensional character or higher, right? I'm gonna just watch. And there's nothing wrong with watching. Let me tell you why. One thing about women is this. In anything you do, they watch you first. They always watch. They're like cats. They just watch and they just watch and they just watch, right? But in a time of them watching, you you can be looking at them from afar, where they don't even know that you're looking at them. And you could say to yourself like, I wonder why this lady is watching me all the time. Don't put in your mindset that, oh, she might be weird, she might be creepy, because sometimes that's how we look at it as we like, why does a woman always watching me all the time? She'll never say nothing. Because that can come off a little bit creepy because, you know, in the third dimensional world, if a guy do it to a woman, women would misinterpret it and say, this guy is creepy for looking at me. So based on him looking at what he's attracted to, he's creepy. And that's when you step away from that woman because you realize her mind is locked down in the third dimension. It's no need on helping her. If she can misinterpret your eyes of looking at her and not say to herself, maybe I attract him. Watch. Women don't even realize the setup that guys technically put them in. I can watch a female from afar, like, make eye contact with her and everything. The reason why I'm watching her is because I'm attracted to her. I like what I see. My eye contact is to confirm if you want to approach me, you could. But am I going to approach her? No, I'm not. Not in this lifetime. In my past life, I would. But in the present moment, I'm not going to. I'm looking I'm looking for someone that is technically in a fourth dimension or higher. Because I know that we're probably going to have the same type of characteristics. The only difference is it's coming from a feminine way versus an alpha way. But I know that the energy is going to naturally align with each other. I know that majority of the time we're going to agree with each other. Even if we disagree, we can look at what we are looking at it and really make the honest decision of how it's supposed to go. Sometimes women might say, this is that. But depending on how I'm looking at it, I could tell her like, it's really not that, it's actually this. And then she's open to receive information as a fourth dimensional character, then we probably have the same personality. We probably have a lot of information aligned with each other versus getting with a third dimensional character. I'm already a higher character already. And the information that she's getting from a third dimension, she might believe is real. But me as a fourth dimensional character, I'm looking at it as it's not real at all. It's just not. So when I look at women, right, I look at to see if they actually upgraded their own conscience. And that's just that's me. Right. But listen, when that woman approach you, do you feel the sensation from how you feel in the inside of you? Like, wow, this is amazing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I never had this to happen to me before. That's how you would feel. And then based on that feeling, right, you're going to hold that and be like, shoot, I want this to happen more often. Right, there you go. But that is that is looking at life from two different dimensions. You can look at it as I should approach her, but then you should look at it as she can approach me as well. What's wrong with that? They people, ain't they? They both could communicate. So why is it that women believe that only men should approach them, but women approach men in order to receive a BMW car though? It just doesn't make sense. But it's all about reprogramming the mind. With that being said, I'm going to conclude this broadcast with basically step out of your third dimensional ways of how you look at life. The things that they taught you from the third dimension can be real to your conscious if you believe into it. But if you go against the narrative of what the third dimension consists of, which is nothing but lies, you now develop that fourth dimensional characteristic in you to say, no, 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 this is not the way it looks. The way it looks is like this. I'll give you an example. When you look at YouTube, right, and you look at the logo of YouTube, right, the logo of YouTube, what does it look like? It looks like a play button. But let's change the dimension of your mind. If you was to look at if you was to look at the logo of YouTube from the top left-hand corner, you would realize it's nothing more than a flying pyramid. But hold on. As a third dimensional character, you were only looking at it from one angle, which is, oh, it looked like a play button. Well, let's change it again. Look at the top. Look how it comes down like this. It makes it like that. Isn't that not a flying pyramid in front of you? Like, oh, bro, I didn't even see it like that. Right. But that's you taking your conscious out of the third dimension and now stepping into the fourth dimension that's within you. A lot of people don't see that. So they look at it like, oh, it's just a play button. But when I show them like, oh, no, it's actually like this, they're like, I didn't even see that. But it's in front of you. It's in front of you. How can you not see it? It's just the dimension that your mind is in. Once you change that, you start to see the world differently. I'll give you another example. You see the tree behind me? Right. Air is not air. It's the information that you breathe in from your first pyramid, which is your nose. And now transferring the information from this so-called air into your conscious in order to operate within the so-called outside. That's what you're doing. I look at the trees differently how some people look at the trees. I feel as though trees are information processors because water is information. The sunlight is information. The seeds that you plant in the soil is information. So all that information coming as one and now being transferred from what you think is your nose, that's technically a pyramid that's on your face. Go look at the pyramid and go look at your nose. You kind of realize like, wow, right. I mean, everything that you think that's on the outside of you is wonderful. No, 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 no. Pay attention to what's really within you that is actually wonderful. Like I say again, step out of the past, step into the present. Pay attention to the words I say to you. Step out of the past and step into the present. When you come out of the past, you're no longer an ass. Past, take the P off what you got. Ass. Okay, you're no longer an ass. Now you step into the present. What is the present? The present must mean that you are a gift. And if you are a gift in the present, then that